Hello and welcome to the programme. Youth unemployment and turbulence in the labour market have increased significantly in recent years, a trend observable not only in Ukraine but also in other European countries. This means that when today's young people get to the pension age, they are prone to be more exposed to the risks of poverty and social insecurity. So what can modern youth do to decrease this risk? And can pension reform help with that? Well, I'm pleased to say joining us in the studio to discuss this is Olga Nikolaieva. She is a research associate at the Kyiv School of Economics. Hello, thank you so much for coming in to our studio.
Good evening, thank you very much for inviting.
So, for the youth of today, they are in a difficult position because do you think people or the youth of today actually expect a pension even when they get to their 60s or 70s?
I have to say, when we were talking to young people, they really expressed an opinion that they maybe should not expect pensions. And they are willing to act as if there are no pensions for them. So I have to say they are really realistic about that. Though in some countries which are more safe in financial terms, they may still consider that the government should save them, something like that. Yeah,
to have a cushion there or something.
Yes.
Actually, we did a lot of research before the interview, and I think a lot of people, especially in Eastern Europe, for example, they have children younger, they have perhaps an apartment, so they share an apartment with their parents for longer. So do you think that across Europe there are differences in how people are prepared to save for their pension and the knowledge that they have?
In general, financial literacy for young people is a problem in Europe, which they consider important. But also, really, there are differences in how people, young people, transfer from school to work, how they stay with their parents. Like in Italy, it's even a problem which they discuss for children to leave parental home. And savings behavior is different.
So what sort of strategies are there to help younger people prepare for the age of the pension?
These strategies are very different across different countries. Many still have this solidatory.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So they have perhaps an old view of
Yes.
what the system should provide them.
Yes,
Okay.
but also they have this savings part. I can't say that all young people understand this. We saw these bright examples of young people who just consider, this is too complicated. So they just opt out just because this is a complicated thing.
And do you think it is complicated, or is that just an excuse to spend some more money?
It's lack of knowledge. For instance, they see example of their parents that it is complicated, but for them, the government prepared another thing, but they do not know about that.
Mm. And when you say the government has prepared another thing, what is the government preparing, or how do you think in the future governments will change their approach to pensions? Say, for example, in Ukraine, there's a lot of reforms which are happening at the moment. One of them is pension reform. So yes. How is the government changing and this pension reform system to benefit the younger people, or are they just not?
I think the pension reform in October 2017 aimed to stabilize pension fund, state pension fund. This is very important, and probably the most important it is for young people, because this means that they will be able to get at least some pension from the state. Another issue which was written in this law is the introduction of savings part, but compulsory savings part.
Do you think that's realistic, though? I mean, do you think that obviously we have this in law, but across Europe you have a growing older population. You have like a triangle. We have older people at the top, and then fewer younger people. In Ukraine, for example, there's a problem of the population decreasing as well. So you have the law, but do you still think it's actually realistic that even in 5 years' time we can imagine even seeing pensions?
I think it is a question without simple answer. On the one hand, it was planned since 2004, and it was delayed. Now I see that insurance companies and private pensions funds, they like lobbying it, because like this the law which they trying to push, they are like 50 deputies signed it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if all of them understand the importance of this document.
So you think that perhaps it was just signed and not really analysed
They
properly?
are not. It has not been voted, but still they like.
But so, for
they
example,
still continue, you know, to lobby it.
Well,
so
is there a way that it can be financed, though? Is there a way that these pensions can be financed in the future?
These are compulsory savings of people. So people should save compulsory.
So it's the law that you have to save money?
Yes. Though experts, like all of them at least, which I met, were against it. Because the question is whether it is safe, and also it's not like the only problem of aging population, but it was also a problem of these pension funds, which lost lots of assets during the financial crisis. So the question whether you still, if you save, if you still see the
so it's a question of trust, almost, then?
No, I would not say it's just trust. It's like the question of financial stability of the country, rule of law.
So this pension,
system.
it plays into the bigger picture when we talk about rule of law, about the reforms.
Definitely. First of all, this broader context is very important for successful pension reform.
Yeah, and in your studies that you've done in the past, what are the main factors behind people saving? Like, what should people do? How can people be prepared to save? I mean, this is interesting for me, actually, because I don't have too much money saved. But what sort of strategies would you advise, or what analysis have you made and conclusions?
How to make young people save?
Yeah.
I think this financial literacy at school is important. And also, for instance, some countries have this like a day when even children can go to a bank and save money and make a deposit there. So I think these things are important. And also one of the most successful was in UK, where you have the ability to opt out, but automatically you're rolled in.
Yeah.
So, but this is also not compulsory, and I think it is important, because nowadays the reform proposed compulsory for everyone, and even I'm an economist, and when I'm considering a pension fund, I find it risky. I don't know. Now there are no good regulation for like law.
You're not protected.
Maybe law is good, but the regulator is weak. So it's a reliability of a person who invests money to know if the pension fund is good for them. But
perhaps also it's about how to make these younger people aware. Before we go any further, we actually have a video. It's from one of the European agencies that backed this video, and it's an animation of one person who's trying to save. So I think we can have a look at that now.
Simon has recently finished his training as a painter, but he couldn't find a job and remains unemployed for the first 2 years. In the next 5 years, Simon moves from job to job always having gaps in between his working contracts in which he lives from his savings. The latest employer offers him a permanent full-time job for the legally set minimum wage. Simon marries, founds a family with his wife, and has to invest much of his income in the joint home and the training of his children. As Simon reaches old age, he realizes that the state pension only allows him a rather basic life. Due to his low income, there never has been room throughout his career to make substantive, additional savings that could now improve his living standard.
I mean, that's just an extract from the video that you produced for your project, and I'm sure we can put a link to the YouTube account where we can find that. What I thought was interesting is that actually these pension funds rely on the macroeconomics, really. They actually appear to look at inflation, employment levels, all these sorts of things. So instead of focusing on pension reform, do you think that it would be a good idea for the government to focus generally on improving the macroeconomic situation? And what should they focus on if they're going to do this?
First of all, it's rule of law. This is the major reform, which is important for the development of the financial markets and also the stock exchange, and because now pension funds they have limited ability to invest. They invest in government bonds and bank deposits. Probably it's safer to invest personally in bank deposits than through the pension fund. So to have the ability to invest, this should be changed. Yeah. Though some experts they mention that Ukrainian credit ratings are really low, and investing in this country is already a risk. So probably we should invest in some other countries as well. Though this is like a bad option for the government.
Well, that's when it gets complicated, when you start investing in other countries.
Yeah, more safer.
Yeah. But hopefully, with the reforms, hopefully you'll have some positive results. Okay, thank you so much for coming into our studio today, and it's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Olga Nikolaieva. She's a research associate at the Kyiv School of Economics. You're watching UATV.